To those who ride them, powered two-wheelers, or motorcycles and mopeds, are loved for obvious reasons. Value for money, time saving, a low-polluting travel option, and an opportunity to use the vehicle simply for the pleasure of it. And they are popular. More than 40 million are on the road in Europe, with 1 million built across the EU and 1.4 million sold in 2019 alone. And for their makers, the scale and scope of the industry is lucrative, with 43 factories and R&D centres across the EU and the UK, undertaking the manufacturing of vehicles, trading, design, and much more. The scale grows further when considering the extended network of companies active in retail and wholesale, of vehicles, repair and maintenance operations, and the manufacturing and sale of protective equipment, such as gloves and helmets, suits, boots, and much more. Financially speaking, the motorcycle industry is an economic growth engine. Across the EU, it generates 21.4 billion euros of GDP, a higher sum than that of Venice, Malaga, and Palma de Mallorca, or the entire economy of Iceland. It also supports 389,000 jobs and creates 16.6 billion euros in tax revenue. Of course, one of the great appeals of motorcycling is its contribution to tourism and social functions of all sizes. From local club touring to arena-filling events, both riders and spectators eagerly participate in this thriving community. Events such as these have positive economic impacts on tourism. Riders and spectators travel to the events buying food, drink, merchandise and souvenirs, paying for campsites, hotels, and buying tickets. Collectively contributing 2.1 billion euros to Europe's GDP, supporting about 38,000 jobs, and creating 1.2 billion euros in taxes. MotoGP and Motocross GP races alone attract 1.5 million international race spectators annually. Collectively, they spent 319 million euros attending race events across European countries in 2019. But to see the biggest societal impact, look no further than our own cities and towns. Everyday use of powered two-wheelers is ideal for urban mobility. Trips in high traffic zones, short traveling distances, and requiring limited space for parking. They save enormous amounts of journey time. If only 5% of European car commuters switched to motorcycles, the aggregate time savings would be 21.2 million days per annum. Two-wheelers are very affordable due to their low fuel and operating costs. Commuting by motorcycle costs about 1/3 of the amount needed to use a car. And environmentally speaking, the average two-wheeler on the streets emits less than half of the CO2 of an average-sized car. Even better, the more common smaller two-wheelers produce even less than that. So it's clear to see, powered two-wheelers offer significant benefits to the European economy, to European mobility, to European citizens, and to the environment.
So, good afternoon from Köln, Intermot and the IFZ conference. Welcome back for those that were here for the last day and a half attending the conference. And welcome to those that actually are joining for this roundtable, which is organized by ACEM together with the IFZ. And the title of the roundtable is The Motorcycle Industry's Future Within the EU Mobility Transformation. What is the vision 2030 plus of the industry and what does it entail? So, before we enter the subject, just a short introduction from my side. My name is Antonio Perlot. I'm Secretary General of ACEM. I'm very glad to be here after, I would say, a hiatus of, well, 4 years, if you think about COVID. Good to see many people that are known in the audience, and I'm sure many more also connecting online. I'm glad also not to be alone, I would say, for this roundtable, physically here in the room. I'm also joined by Helfried Sorger from KTM. I will introduce him in further detail later on. And we also have many speakers on the line that will be supporting the discussion today. We have about 1 hour and a half time for this exchange. I've been told you can also fill the stage, meaning that it's only the two of us here, but obviously the audience can also help with questions and contributions. Those will be very welcome. And the audience online is able to send information, questions, also via a feed that is available on the online tool that you use to connect. So maybe before I move on with the program, a short introduction about what is Vision 2030 Plus. You see a slide here on the screen, I hope also at home. This is an initiative that the industry has launched basically last November at the occasion of the 2021 conference, after, I would say, a long period of gestation of about a year, even a bit more, thinking about what are the challenges of the future. We've been talking about the new normal after COVID. I think that's one big question we all have. How will we move around? But if we look beyond, there are, of course, challenges, and especially in Europe, the European Union has taken, as you know, initiatives that are aiming at achieving sustainable mobility from all perspectives, whether it is from the mobility itself. Of course, mobility should support wealth creation. This is very important for any region. But it should also look at preserving the environment, ensuring that there is health and safety for people moving around and for people moving with different means of transport. In our case, of course, also motorcycles are included. And of course, it should also mitigate climate change. These are all topics which were present before COVID hit. Obviously, they've been gaining even more, I would say, visibility over the last 2 years, and this is the reason why the industry really felt there was a need to position our vehicles, the vehicles that we are producing and the vehicles that many of us are using, many of us here in the room, but also beyond the room itself, an increasing number of people, I must say, even during COVID, showed to use two-wheelers, and how these vehicles can be made more sustainable. So, I don't want to enter too much into details at this stage. You saw a first video which is showing what the sector is about. We thought that is important, I would say, to present who we are, even though the people in the room know that very well. But the ACEM vision was really aiming at addressing all the, if you like, negatives that are associated with mobility and trying to position the power two-wheeler with a vision forward at the horizon 2030 and beyond. So this is the result. You see here is a schematic depiction of that vision. We will discuss it today. There is more information on our website with a series of position papers I'd like to invite you to go through if you haven't done yet so, to basically complete the picture. But without further ado, I would like to enter the program, and we will start first with a keynote speech from the ACEM President, Michele Colaninno. I'll briefly introduce Michele Colaninno. He is, as I said, ACEM President, is also Director of Piaggio and Company S.p.A. and Chief Executive of Global Strategy, Product, Marketing and Innovation. He's also founder and chairman of Piaggio Fast Forward, the group robotic company headquartered in Boston, USA, whose mission is to develop innovative mobility solutions for the future. In addition, Michele Colaninno is Chief Executive Officer and Chief Operating Officer of the IMSI Group, an industrial holding active in the financial, real estate and industrial sectors listed on the Milan Stock Exchange. So Michele, I believe you're on the line. Yeah, here we are. So good afternoon. The floor is yours.
So thank you, Antonio, for your introduction. I just want to briefly describe what industry is still in the field of mobility that we are investing in, entrepreneurs and mentors. As the video pointed out, we are facing, fun, mobility, and commuting opportunities for our products that goes from two-wheel with thermic engines to two-wheel with electric engines, and hopefully to two-wheel with other technologies that will fulfill the needs of today. Surely we are facing the worst period after the Cold War. You're in a situation where the crisis in Ukraine is, putting efforts to every industries in the world, and unfortunately, this is a momentum where, perhaps fear and uncertainty is taken part of our everyday job. But being positive and hoping that the situation will be solved sooner than later, what we have in mind as ACEM in the future of mobility. We all know that we have to take care about the future of our children and of our families. And we are part of the green revolution that is taking, biggest stage every day in every sector of the industry in the world, especially in Europe, by the way, where the European Union is helping us to invest more in new technology. What I say is that through new development of laws and other ideas that the European politics are putting on the table, we are developing products that will not for sure be the same product of today. We will invest in new technology and hire more people. And this is one of the most relevant things we have to take in mind when speaking about industry. So hiring people, new technology that will help everybody to have a safer life and a better quality of life, even if we are working for fun, mobility, and also sometimes for delivery of goods, because two-wheel vehicles can also be used for those situations. As I said, we are in a world of new technology, and we know that the evolution that we are now entering will help us a lot to reach the target of reducing pollution, not just in Europe, but all over the world. We are now speaking about Europe, so I would say that the investments that every industry is doing are going to be full efficient in about 5 to 10 years, I would say, because we know that new technologies need not just investments from industries, but need a world that must evolve in this situation. So we need infrastructures. We need regulations that have to be, aligned state by state. We need to have time to develop these technologies. I personally think that we as entrepreneurs or managers should be somehow free to decide which is the best technology to put on ground in order to reach the target of reducing pollution and having better mobility solutions for everybody. So we know that electric mobility is now the topic that everybody of us is reading on newspapers, having sometimes we are buying vehicles, sometimes we are just trying vehicles. But in my view, and this is also the vision that we have at ACEM in when we debate about the Vision 2030, there are other technologies that we can develop and where we are investing and that we are researching. So mobility is not just a field of commuting from A to B. So that's why we have to be very pragmatic, because at the end of the day, costs must be lower than revenues. That because the industry has to proceed in hiring new people, creating jobs, and investing. Not just to give the better solution and the best quality and the best products that we can do and that we can give to the customers, but also to offer new mobility solutions that are not just the vehicles. I mean infrastructures. I mean technology behind the electromobility, investments that coming from all the world, all part of the world that must be in Europe just to fulfill the needs of supply chain and just to be able to be the best in the world. This is what I think. This is what ACEM is doing. We are, putting a lot of efforts and doing a lot of studies in order to understand which is the right path and which is the best, the better solution to fulfill the needs of our customers and of people moving around. We know that the power two-wheel vehicles and the technology around this can contribute a lot to the target that European Commission has given us, or that are thinking, or that will put on the table in the next 20, 30 years onwards. The diversity in our range from mopeds to motorcycles are they can fulfill all the product lines that we can think about. And I'm sure that industries will evolve, no problem. Technology is not an issue. We have great ideas in mind. Everybody in the ACEM Association is continuously stimulating dialogues for new technologies and new ideas. So we are not afraid about technology. We are just analyzing, I repeat, in a pragmatic way, which is the best solution to fulfill the gap and to reach a better solution for non-polluting vehicles, decarbonization, new infrastructures that must be built by municipality or states, because we cannot do everything as the industry is concentrating on developing products. Safety is another issue. We are strongly convinced that active and passive safety of our vehicles has done a tremendous job in the last 10 years. Our products, the products that we can show to the market, are growing and are proposing better safety solutions, so to avoid incidents or problems downtown or even outside the cities. So it's a whole world that has to move. It's not just the industry. It's the world of politics for sure. It's the world of entrepreneurs. It's the world of suppliers, and hopefully, when the situation will be better, I'm speaking about the geopolitical situation, everything will come to normality, and we will be concentrated in going on this path. For sure, this year has been a difficult year. Next year will be difficult too. But as long as we are positive as we are, everything will come to normality, and I hope sooner than later, as I said before, and we will be able to go on in investments and technology for our products. This is what I have to say, Antonio. As you know, we are continuously pushing our colleagues to have new ideas, because it's just through new ideas and new technology that we can evolve. We are continuously pushing everybody at the ACEM level to speak with politics, European Commissions, state level, majors, to explain that we are one of the intelligent solution for mobility in Europe and outside Europe. Last but not least, robotics and software are coming into our world, and I think that the junction between robotics, engineer, marketing, that is a part of our business, but robotics and software will take a bigger part in the future. And for sure, these new technologies that everybody was aware about will help us to develop what we are thinking for the next 20 years. Hopefully, and for sure, competition around the world is what push all the industry to do better. And in the beginning, because we are just at the beginning of this worldwide transition, we don't even know what happens in the next 10, 20 years. I'm convinced, I repeat, because this is one of the interesting field where we are developing the strategy for the ACEM, participants. The transition is made to competition, but the technology, the neutral technology, is the key. If you tell someone to do something, then he can decide which is the better technology, the better way to achieve the goal. I'm convinced that it's not by thinking about just one piece of the cake that we can reach the goal, but we have to think about the best ingredients to do the perfect recipe. And the recipe is to create a better world for tomorrow morning, not just in 20 years, but we have to think about tomorrow morning, because the problem is there. We see the problem of pollution. We cannot avoid it. We cannot think about this, and we can solve it. I'm totally convinced. There's no problem on it, but we have to work together, and just working together and creating solutions. I repeat, solutions for the mobility of tomorrow. We can achieve the goal, and we can win. Mobility of P2, power two-wheel vehicles is one of the better solutions for the mobility of tomorrow. I don't want to steal more time, Antonio. I'm here to listen to the roundtable that is very interesting for today. Unfortunately, I'm not there but it's my problem that, and we have to deal with it. That's it, Antonio, and ready to answer if there are questions. But I think that the strategy we have in mind is just to be the solution for the mobility of tomorrow. Thank you all. Thank you for being there. And I'm honored, obviously, to open the discussion of this roundtable that I think is very interesting, and where people will suggest ideas to be part of the solution.
Perfect. Thank you. So, thank you, Michele. I think you hit the nail on the head, as they say, many nails, I must say, because the purpose here today is to engage with a group of, I would say, scientists. Academia is in the room. This group is mainly historically dealing with safety as a topic, and clearly that remains a clear focus of sustainable mobility. But even in the program these last 2 days, we had presentations on electromobility. There were, I would say, presentations also on decarbonizations at large, which I'm sure will become an increasing part of this, probably this conference program also in the future. If I don't know if there are any direct questions. I'm looking in the room, but I would also suggest that we come back to those questions probably later on, as we have a Q&A section in the program. So, having said that, I would continue then with the program, and I hope you will be able to follow at least part of the discussion, Michele. Okay.
Absolutely, yes. I'm very pleased to listen and find your idea.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, as we identified the challenges, and as was mentioned in the speech, the ACEM vision is really looking at making our vehicle a solution. If I think about the different usages of our vehicle, we talk about leisure, we talk about, I would say, also urban mobility. Depending on where you go in Europe, there are different kinds of usages. We all know that there are different kinds of vehicles, as was said also in the speech by Mr. Colaninno. These vehicles, in their diversity, provide a lot of solutions for mobility and leisure. And this is one of the things we will for sure focus on today. Maybe if I then move on, because the other point is we have this conceptual vision. The objective is to have 3 manufacturers presenting how they interpret parts of these vision in practical cases in their own lineup, plans for the future. I have basically 3 speakers that will intervene from the industry. I will introduce them progressively as we move on. And as we mentioned that the focus is on innovation, and the European Commission was mentioned, I also have the pleasure of having in today's discussion Maurizio Maggiore from DG RTD, who will come in after the 3 presentations have been made. We will then move into the Q&A, and I would say discussion, also interacting with yourselves and those connected remotely. So I maybe start with the first of the presenters, and this is a remote presentation again. So Eric de Seynes is basically on the line, should be with us. Eric is an ACEM Vice President. He is President and CEO of Yamaha Motor Europe. He's also Senior Executive Officer at Yamaha Motor Japan. Basically all his life, I would say, has been dedicated mainly to motorcycles, whether it's from a professional or also from a leisure, I would say, hobby point of view. A lot of interest there, and before he was also CEO of Yamaha Motor France. So, Eric, welcome. I'm glad you can join us remotely. And I'll leave you the floor to present what is the Yamaha interpretation of the vision, with a focus on safety, because this is what we were hoping also you would be able to bring to this table, given I mentioned the audience is very much, I would say, specialist in this area. Eric, please. You have to unmute yourself, or we don't hear. Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect.
Thanks to the technology. So first of all, good afternoon all. Obviously, I'm sorry not to be physically there with all of you. However, the topic is obviously important. This is part of my life, but more important, this is part of Yamaha responsibility and mission. First of all, I would like to remind that during the last 20 years, the progress have been there, and the statistics are demonstrating that the motorcycle usage, scooter usage, fortunately, is less and less dangerous. And we have seen in Europe the fatal accident decreasing by 44% in 20 years, which is a significant progress. But also in the same time, the active park has been increasing by close to 30%, which means that the net progression, the net improvement is really around minus 50%. We could be satisfied, but it's not enough. By definition, we must continue to trend. There is a manufacturer car who say, in our car, we would like to achieve 0 fatal accident. This is a dream for all of us, obviously. We know it's super tough, but we have to work on it. And we have been working on it during the past years. And I will say that today, the way we try to improve the safety conditions for our users, but not only for our users, also for the society around, because motorcycle usage is not isolated in the middle of nowhere. We are part of a society. We have to respect the bicycle, the pedestrian, the car users, all the others. We are part of the mobility world. And for that, during the last years, and we continue to work on it, we have been playing with 4 domains. The first one, obviously, has been how to improve the passive security of our vehicles. And in general, the main improvement has been done in relation with electronic devices like ABS, like TCS, which means traction control system, avoiding to slide if you control not so well your acceleration, and especially under the wet conditions. The TCI take the control and avoid this kind of risky situation. And all these devices have been implemented on our vehicle, from big bikes to mid-size bike to now entry level. So even today, the majority of the scooters, 125cc, are equipped with these devices. And it's obviously very good. I just would like to remind that the intention of motorcycle industry has always been to equip their vehicle with this kind of device as quick and as soon as possible. And fortunately, in general, all these devices at the start are always too bulky, too heavy, too expensive. And I clearly remember when we have been implementing ABS system, BMW has been the first one, Yamaha has been the second one in 1992. It was already 10 years later than car. But just because at the beginning an ABS system was like a shoe box, and the weight was more than 5 kilos, and to position a shoe box of 5 kilos in a motorbike, it's not an easy exercise. It's super tough, super difficult. And also the cost of this device at that time was representing 5 to 10% of the car value. But for a motorcycle, it was representing 20 to 30% of the value. So we have to accept that in our industry, we need miniaturization, compacity, lightweight before to be implemented. Until we cannot achieve a certain level of performance, it's super difficult. However, we did it, and we could see the result in that field. The second domain where we have also improved, connected to this passive safety, is the quality of equipment, helping the riders to control his bike. Electronic is one thing, but also mechanical. And with the improvement of suspension, braking system, tires, we have many components where we have been working with our partners, technical suppliers, to increase and improve. It can also concern the lighting system, how to be more visible, and how to improve the way the riders will always ride under safe conditions. The second level is the passive safety, which is finally also connected to the equipment of the riders, the way you ride. So as manufacturer, we did a lot of campaigns, and also we have been training our dealer network to know how to sell, how to support and convince our customers to invest a part of the price in their safety equipment. Quality of helmets, quality of jackets, quality of pants, quality of boots, gloves, and now even airbag system. So there is a strong effort, and we can see that if 10, 15 years ago, Germany was ahead of the rest of Europe in terms of passive safety equipment for the riders, we can see that now, year after year, all countries are following that trend, and now the level of equipment is much better than it was, and it has been also contributing to the safety. The third program, where also as manufacturer we can have some responsibility, and we took our responsibility, is everything related to education programs. We have in the motorcycle field riding schools, like you have driving schools for cars. But on top of that, we have been encouraging structure where you can have additional training, additional education program to continue to progress in your skillness, in the control of your vehicle. Also, we have been encouraging all the riders who were looking for a leisure usage of their bikes, and let's consider even to ride fast. Then we have been developing many programs of track days to get access to the circuit, to the infrastructure for a very cheap price, to be sure that these kind of riders who are motivated by the performance can enjoy the performance on secure track, totally with full safety equipment and with bikes which are appropriate to this usage. So we have been pushing out of the roads all these users who are now understand and they exert their leisure in this kind of full safety environment. And it has been also contributing. And the fact that we are selling less and less what we call super sports bike is really showing that now the customers have understood that race is race, sport is sport, and mobility and road usage is another story. And now it's totally in the spirit and in the motivation of our customers. The fourth domain, which is perhaps now the most promising, is about connectivity and electronic. We know that the major reason, the first reason of the fatal accident is about the collision between a motorcycle and a truck or a car. And obviously, the fight is not in favor of the motorcyclist. When you are motorcyclist, you are vulnerable, and we have to take care of this. And this is why, since 2014, all the manufacturers or some selected manufacturers in our fields, in motorcycle fields, have been starting to build up a CMC, which was the Connected Manufacturer Consortium, to work about what is the technical words is CYTS, which means the Cooperative Intelligence Transport System, which means finally how to develop a communication means which can connect all the users on the public road to be connected together, and finally supporting to prevent the identification and visibility of the other users you will cross soon. And for motorcycle, it's obviously particularly valid because in general, when there is an accident, the car users or the truck drivers say, I did not see, I did not saw. I was surprised. For me, there was nobody, and suddenly the bike was in front of me. So if we can detect and prevent in advance the zone where you have the risk of collision, we will support the safety for the car users, truck driver, but also the riders. So we have been working during 5 years, and Yamaha was active part of this consortium, and we have been testing different protocol, different equipment with our vehicle, T-Max, FGR, so different model of motorbike. But again, it was not just Yamaha. We were all together, all manufacturers trying to find the best solution and to determine this protocol. Now we are arriving at a point where the technology is there. We know that also that the infrastructure are ready to accept this kind of connectivity. The efficiency of this system obviously will be fully efficient if all the vehicles are equipped. And this is the limitation of this development now. It's just to see how we can spread, we can impose this protocol to be sure that now all the new vehicle will be step by step equipped with this device. And then we will have the possibility to be identified. To secure the efficiency of this system, we are also working on more electronic devices being equipping the vehicle on board. I speak about cameras, I speak about radar. I did an experience recently. I could enjoy to be trained on a Boeing 787 simulator. Okay, nothing to see with our vehicle, but yes, there is a common sense. And I have learned how to avoid a collision in the air against another plane. And when you are piloting a Boeing, which is not every day, you have a radar, and where you see a silhouette coming in front of you. White first, no danger. Orange, risky. Red, risk of collision. And then you can react. And I could experience live this device, this efficiency. And when I saw that, immediately I was thinking to motorcycle and the mobility world. When we will have this device where immediately you can detect this risk of collision, we will make another big step in the improvement of the statistic, but behind the statistic, we speak about lives. So we are working in these 4 domains permanently. The 4th one is surely perhaps the more promising to pass another step in the statistic and the improvement, but we don't forget the first 3, which are a permanent effort, and we are happy to see every year, step by step, the number of these fatal accidents reducing, and we know that we have also to take care about the injuries. It will be the next step, but I just wanted to share with you how much we are committed in these objectives and how much we feel our responsibility to serve a better mobility world in the future for our society in terms of CO2, emission, silent, and safety. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. I will not open the floor for questions because if I open the floor on CMC, we will be behind time. What I would suggest, if you can stay with us, that we keep the questions for the exchange, the Q&A section of the program. But you highlighted really what is the different aspects of safety, some long-standing, some looking forward. I think this is really what we want to show with the vision, that this is the direction we're looking forward on many topics. You mentioned also decarbonization, which leads me directly to my only neighbor here in the room, and I'm really glad to welcome Helfried Sorger, Managing Director, CTO Powertrain for KTM, Forschungs and Entwicklungs. I hope I pronounced this correctly. But before then, he was working at AVL, also in different positions, focusing on vehicle and engine design. So I'm glad you can be with us today. I think you will talk about decarbonization, which is another one of the main fields that were mentioned by Eric de Seynes, and obviously it is also dealt with by Yamaha as you're dealing with safety. I mean, the idea here is to show some examples and we will bring everything together afterwards. So please, the floor is yours.
Antonio, thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having me here in person. I enjoy it very much. And I want to take you a little bit to a small journey to decarbonization of the Bira Mobility. And the question is, first of all, who is Bira Mobility? It's a holding company of the Europe's leading manufacturers, power two-wheelers, the KTM AG. And I just don't want to bore you with these figures, but it should show you that with more than 5,000 employees, we have achieved last year with our premium brands to sell more than 400,000 powered two-wheelers, thereof around 300,000 motorcycles. And we are fully committed to a sustainable future within our business. And this starts in the logistic chain, it goes over the production, and of course it ends, and I'm a powertrain guy, so I need to say that, with the efficiency of our powertrains. So, and I tell you that because it's quite tricky and some sort of a challenge to really be sustainable within this field. You see our three brands we have under our rooftop, which is KTM, Husqvarna and GasGas. And if you see how we have interlinked in a modular way our powertrains into the vehicles coming from the off-road and the competition over the dual purpose, the street, up to the competition ones. And we are pushing our 1- and 2-cylinder engines, the ICEs, and of course the e-drives into all these vehicles in the premium sector. I think we have achieved a lot already in being CO2 optimized. We are in the range of around 95 grams for the entire fleet. And I think this is a good starting point. But it's the starting point, it's not the end. So we are dedicated to the right vehicle, right place, and right energy carrier approach. So this is a clear statement into diversification. And we have 3 points there I want to highlight. First of all, it's the technology openness, which is for us a driver for research and innovation. Prohibition never in history was a good choice. And what we see right now from politics is a sort of a prohibition of the ICE, powered two-wheeler, and not a sustainable approach, cradle to grave, with the right energy carrier. So we strongly believe that we should change this, and I think we are on a good way. Maybe a little later we have the one or the other question or discussion point here. So what does this mean, technology openness? This enables competition of technologies, and this is the motivator for new solutions. And we strongly believe that e-fuels can, a good solution, can substitute the conventional gasoline which we have today, 100% or as a blend or whatsoever. So there is a way to get rid of the pure fossil fuel up to 2050. We fully are committed to that Fit for 55 challenge. E-fuels can specifically designed, and I think this is a very good technical point, to increase the efficiency and decrease the emissions on the long term. So for us, e-fuels are not a bridging technology towards electrification. It's not a niche. It's one of the possible routes to go on a long-term run. So you see, under point 2, we believe in a multi-pathway to decarbonization of the powertrains for all our segments. So let's start with the performance class below 250 ccm. So we see here a mix of electric motorcycles in the low voltage range. We talk about 48 volts, due to the fact that high voltage systems are still quite expensive. This is not the case for 48 volts. And I think especially for urban areas, this could be or will be, from our point of view, the right way to go. This is not the case for the higher performance classes. So we think that above 250 ccm, the optimization of the ICE is the way to go. Optimization means new combustion concepts, dedication to synthetic fuels, maybe the help of electrification for the ICE. And I think this will again drop the consumption, would decrease the consumption by a further 10 to 20%. And this 10 to 20% we can gain out of the fossil fuels right now for the entire fleet, and we can also gain that for sure for the e-fuels. So we are investigating, or more than investigating, this on our racing tracks. So from 2024 onwards, we will have a blend on MotoGP with e-fuels, and by 2027 there will be e-fuel only operations on MotoGP. And we are a founding member of the e-fuel alliance, and I think the one or the other has maybe read the press. So we have a breakthrough in having e-fuels as CO2 neutral accepted, not only H2, but also the e-fuel as derivative out of this process. So I'm quite happy about that. This does not necessarily mean electrification is bad. I like and love electrified bikes, in particular ours. And we see each other as a pioneer for the electric motorcycles, and we have in 2014 launched the KTM Freeride E. And with a lot of other smaller bikes, especially for the youth riders, for trial sports activities and other sports models in our portfolio. But we have a clear target. At least we will have 3 multi-product electric platforms launched in 2024. And get duked, I have to say it this way. And of course, we are a founding member of the Swabian Battery Consortium. We will hear a speech later on. We believe that the infrastructure is one of the key elements for the electrified motorbike, but also the environment or the infrastructure for e-fuels, from my point of view, is the task of the politics. So this is our roadmap until 2030 and beyond. We are in the middle of the development of this, and in particular I want to give you this example. So it's a clear target to become a global leader of electrified powered two-wheelers in the power range between 250 watts up to 15 kilowatts. And by 2030 it's a clear target of our company that we have at least 1/3 of the group sales with electrified powered two-wheelers. So thanks for joining the journey with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helfried, for the. So we're all going to get duked, apparently. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, jokes aside, no, this is very important. You underlined many points, which indeed are part of the ACEM vision. So on the one hand, the diversity of solutions, the multi-pathway, which we fully support, with clearly an emphasis on electrification on the lower end of the vehicles because of the diversity I was mentioning earlier. So low range, low performance, densely populated areas, cities, urban mobility. So that clearly will go progressively in the direction of electrification. We, by the way, just read this morning, we as ACEM are becoming part of the expert group at European level on urban mobility, which is, I think, a great opportunity to provide these inputs to the European Commission as we move forward. We were talking about how to create a position for the sector. I think we have many opportunities there. And then, of course, you talked about also vehicles that would have to continue in the next future being operated with fossil fuels for the start, which is clearly already a positive development as such, because we emit less CO2 than many of the vehicles that are today. And even if you look in perspective, I would add, and we can come back to that in the discussion later on, if you look at the targets that are applicable for cars in the future, we are already below those. So I think there's a large opportunity to be seized for all at European level, not only the industry in promoting the vehicles. But I don't want to take more time now, and I will not open the floor for questions, as I said. I want to allow the last speaker from the industry, and then we will have Maurizio Maggiore, as I mentioned, from the Commission. So the third speaker for the industry is Riccardo Tosi, Executive Vice President, Two-Wheeler Product Development and Product Marketing at Piaggio, where he's also heading the e-mobility group. As you were mentioning, this is going to be the main, I would say, focus for Mr. Tosi's intervention. Before being in the current position, he covered different positions at product development and marketing in Piaggio, where he actually also started his career as engine design team leader, powertrain and engineering system. At some point, he had a short digression to the four-wheeled world with Fiat and then FCA as platform manager, but he came back to two-wheelers, which I think is a very good thing, and the floor is yours, Riccardo.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Let's start with some historical information about Piaggio playing in the decarbonization over the years. Piaggio pioneered the decarbonization with the launch of the first plug-in hybrid vehicle in the 2010. It was an MP3 and was able to provide more than 40 kilometers in zero-emission version. Then Piaggio continued with new products, starting with the Vespa Elettrica in the new deal of electrification in the 2018. Vespa Elettrica is the first mass market vehicle that Piaggio launched with the battery, lithium battery on board, and then with the Piaggio 1 last year, definitely entered in the mass market world with a really affordable vehicle, light, compact, with the first swap battery of the group. Then we are preparing new products that will come next in the 2024 on and the following years. These products are coming from motorcycles, then new scooters, and commercial vehicles, because Piaggio is playing in the commercial vehicles field. What's next? The alternative fuels that the KTM colleague already introduced, and the battery electric vehicles are for us the two paths by through the decarbonization and to be solved. The alternative fuels is a recipe really interesting for the bigger engines or the bigger vehicles, because it is really easy and versatile to use, and is suitable for vehicles with more than under 25 cc equivalent and up. Piaggio is already part of the e-fuel alliance, and is pushing this technology because we think that it could help the battery electric vehicle the solution to be the solution for the future. But in the transient period, we want to have two paths and two recipes to play with. The swappable batteries motorcycle consortium is the other way in which Piaggio is pushing the decarbonization. It's a consortium that is leveraging on the swap batteries and the swap stations that are solving some of the problem that now is breaking the battery electric vehicle diffusion. Next. So alternative fuels is for us one of the solutions in parallel to the electrification. It is really climate neutral, and if we take into account the entire balance, and it no need of widespread infrastructure like the recharging stations that the electric vehicles needs today. So it's another solution that we want to take into account. Next, please. I want to introduce you, which is the swappable batteries motorcycle consortium idea. It is a simple chart in which is described, which is the procedure that a rider can use to replace the battery. When the battery is empty and a customer wants to recharge it, he or she has just to replace the battery, the empty battery, with a new one already charged, that it charged by a recharging station, which is basically a box in which some slot has fully charged batteries. So the customer has just to replace one battery with the other, and full stop. So 1 minute will solve the problem of the recharging time. 1 minute is enough to have a fully charged battery on board the vehicle. Next, please. The Swappable Batteries Motorcycle Consortium has basically 4 goals to achieve. One is to create a common spec for the battery system, so a specification that widely all the members can share. The second one is the common usage of the swapping system. So the members submit a sort of agreement to use this way to play with the battery electric vehicles. The third one is the standardization bodies, in which the standard have to be registered. And later on, I will explain where we are, because this is the final goal. So create a standard for everybody. The fourth one is to enlarge the coverage of this standard abroad, so outside Europe, outside the ACEM area. The standardization and swappable batteries of swappable batteries and swappable system, so is a solution to solve the limited range, a recharging time that customers today has. Just move to the members. Today, the SBMC consortium count the 4 founders, so Piaggio, KTM, Honda, and Yamaha, and further 8 OEMs that joined the consortium. On top to this, we have 3 battery manufacturers, 1 infrastructure player, and 7 component suppliers, and many other potential members are applied to be part of this consortium. This is a simple roadmap that described what happened and what will happen within the consortium. We are in September 2022. Now we have a design of the battery 80% frozen. Now we are starting with 2 paths of validation, one through a clean test in the city with already existing batteries and already existing vehicle provided from the members, and then a prototyping phase for the battery at the level proto, in which this battery will be tested at the testing rates in order to validate the design. By end of 2024, this design will be completely validated and frozen, and then by the beginning of 2024 and over the 2024, this design is planned to be public and available for the members. Please, next. So just to conclude, the swap batteries provide advantages for customer and for the environment. Customers have a longer range, basically an infinite range, because they can replace batteries every time as the battery will get empty. They have no more anxiety for the range, since this battery will be provided at the corner of the streets, so within the city centers, and they will be really a solution to reduce the cost of the vehicle, because the vehicle will be sold without the batteries on board, because the batteries will be provided by the system. For the environment, the advantages are the efficiency of the swapping systems, because they are developed at the center point, so they can provide with the better solutions that many OEMs can provide, and the suppliers. The recycling is guaranteed, and the circular economy too, since a sort of central point will drive the analysis and the management of these tools, and the afterlife batteries is guaranteed as well. This standardization leads to a great technical evolution, of course, because all the players within the two wheels will cope on the same table to design the better solutions. Thank you for your attention.
So, again here, thanks for the presentation. This is again aiming at showing what is the vision, I would say, from Piaggio, which is not, I would say, any different from what has been presented by KTM. It's basically, I would say, complementing it. I'd like to move forward to welcoming Maurizio Maggiore, because we've been talking so much about policy, we've been talking about legislation, and clearly we are not at the moment, and this is very important, the motorcycle industry is not impacted by current CO2 legislation that is applying to cars. There is a good reason for that. We are a drop in the ocean, I always say, when it comes to CO2. I hear somebody online, but I don't know. Michele. Okay. Hi, here we are. Hello, Maurizio. Welcome.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So, now, you're welcome. Thanks for joining. I was just saying that we are not touched by legislation, but clearly we are thinking about what we could bring in terms of solutions for the future and how we can contribute overall to decarbonization. And this is the reason why, as I was saying in the introduction to this event, we have in the room here, Maurizio, many researchers. It's a very innovative audience, if you like, and we thought it would be best to have somebody like you from DG RTD to basically also show what is the current view of the Commission. So maybe just more formally introducing Maurizio Maggiore. Maurizio Maggiore is a senior expert at the automotive branch of DG Research and Innovation at the European Commission. He follows the reduction of polluting emissions, the increase in efficiency of conventional engines, as well as electrification and hydrogen fuel cell technology in road transport applications. Previously, he worked in the aviation business at Agusta. I would say the wrong Agusta if I take the motorcycle view. It should be another one, but still dealing with engines and vehicles, and we talked about vehicles that are using mobility and improving mobility. For sure, aviation can do something too, and also in publishing. So without further ado, I'd like to leave you the floor. We are a bit running behind schedule, but I don't think that should be a matter of stress. Please take your time, and if we run a bit late, I'm sure we can count on the organizers' understanding. So, floor is yours, Maurizio.
Thank you, and hello to the audience. Fortunately, I'm not there. I'm connected from Brussels. I'll try to give a kind of brief outlook of the legislation, even though, as just said, it's not regarding two-wheelers at the moment. But I think it's important because since you said you are a drop in the ocean, I think that the developments will be connected. So if you go to the next slide, I will give you a kind of first introduction on the Green Deal, which I think is the reference, is the Bible. I highlighted the areas where transport impacts are most relevant, and I underline that one of them is eliminating pollution. I think that this is a little bit overlooked when I hear certain discussions, let's say. But apart from that, of course, it's strongly about climate neutrality, but with all the side issues like social impact, impact beyond Europe, mining and all that, it's trying really to cover all the bases. It's not forgetting anything, like sometimes I hear people saying, you forget this, you forget that. You look into the package and there's really almost everything. And whatever is not there is coming because we have some follow-up activity. Next slide. For sure, there's been a kind of political background. I will go fast on this, the climate law, the climate pact involving the citizens and so on. But the centerpiece has been Fit for 55 presented last year. The guiding principles are that we have really to stress efficiency first, do not harm, linked with this zero pollution ambition, and the just transition to look at the social impacts. Next slide, please. So looking at mobility in the Green Deal, it's trying to attack the problem from all sides. So looking at multimodality in order to facilitate the use of the best means for each part of the trip. Look at the potential that automated and connected driving can give to mobility, services, reservation, ticketing, all those things that today sometimes are a bit of a mess when you have to move from one transport means to another, for instance, in public transport. At the same time, we have to make sure that prices reflect reality. At the moment, basically, society pays for problems created by some people and not all. Everybody pays for problems created only from a part. So to make sure that the market really plays a role, prices must reflect it. And of course, in our view, that a lot of that, let's say, passes through the penetration of zero-emission vehicles. Because in the end, they, at the same time, take care of many of these issues. At the same time, this requires an infrastructure to support them, to enable the consumers to have the minimum difference with what is today. I'm not sure we will ever achieve no difference, but I think that in such a big effort, a little bit, a minimum of change should be acceptable. And at the same time, we have to make sure that this is interoperable, that wherever you go, you can use what you have. So standardization and so on are playing a big role. Next slide. For implementing this in the legislation that is included in Fit for 55 and will be included, for instance, here there's no mention of heavy duty, but it's coming at the same, let's say, in the same direction. We have standards for cars that basically the proposal, but I would say now it's more a proposal because whatever the Commission has proposed now has been endorsed by Parliament and Council, at least in the broad lines. So, for instance, the 2035 zero emission date seems to be staying during the negotiation. And this means that we will have a parallel deployment of the vehicle and of the infrastructure. The infrastructure has, let's say, clear targets on main roads, because of course Europe has an influence on legislation on the main roads, the so-called TEN-T network. But of course, these are then going to be reflected by member states on the other roads, I think. Next slide. So I put here what these targets are. There are targets on the, let's say, quantity and quality in terms of power that can be provided by the charging points and at what distance they have to be. And the same is also true for heavy duty, in particular for hydrogen, because at the moment, I think for heavy duty, we are still in a watching phase, because basically the first heavy duty zero emission vehicles are coming out now, and which one is really the best, or if both are good, and we will and the market will decide for each application what's the best one. There it's basically parallel hydrogen and electrification. Next slide, please. As I said, there's plenty of other actions going on. We, as I mentioned, the heavy-duty legislation. There will be a battery legislation. So all the discussion on the sustainability of batteries and the production and so on and so forth will be dealt with by legislation imposing clean batteries as well as clean vehicles. So import from places where the electricity used for manufacturing the battery is not clean will be discouraged or even stopped. And the same in Europe will be promoting clean, let's say, manufacturing of batteries. There will be Euro 7 and air quality legislation being revised. And as I said, this means that the pollution will get a very high let's say, visibility compared to the past. In the past, there were compromises done on to achieve improvement in CO2, which led to pollution. The idea is not to have such trade-offs anymore. And at the same time, and I will talk about it later, we, let's say, are supporting this transition with a very strong R&D support. We have partnerships which are basically a common funding, a common, let's say, work between public and private on supporting these transitions, on the zero-emission vehicles, on hydrogen fuel cells, and on batteries. So all these, we are talking about, well, the hydrogen is not only transport, so considering the transport part of the hydrogen fuel cell, I think we are well above 2 billion euros in the next years. And then we have a new kind of instrument, which is the missions on climate neutral cities. So cities that commit themselves to become climate neutral by 2030, and we are supporting them to demonstrate, to cross-fertilize, to find synergies. And I think this, I say it already now, I think this is a kind of sandbox where new ideas and new concepts can be tested, let's say. So this is, let's say, the background. When you look at the implementation, of course, there's a lot of things you have to look at in terms of challenges and potential solutions and so on. But as I said, pollution is a major concern. And I think that there is a misunderstanding when the word zero, that technology neutral is mentioned. Zero tailpipe emission is a technology neutral definition because it's a performance target. So there's nothing basically stopping any technology that can deliver the target to be, let's say, applied. And we have to be clear, exhaust pollution is dominating the effects, and there is also noise, by the way. And therefore, e-fuels, for instance, don't do anything to address them. And I would underline another thing, because there's a lot of stress about Europe. But who is in driving seat really in these issues is cities and member states. I mean, Europe, I said, proposes basically to stop selling combustion cars by 2035. There are cities, several and big ones, and some countries which are thinking about banning all vehicles, including existing ones, from 2030. So it's not European regulation that was driving here. And the main cause is pollution. So I think that we have to face this kind of issues because I don't think that the cities will be swayed. I mean, they are under risk of infringement procedures and so on. So they have to do something. Another challenge is for sure the availability of clean electricity. and but not all electricity, because I think we have enough at the moment for a full replacement of the vehicle fleet. The problem is getting it clean. And as I said, it's an issue, but we shouldn't overstate it. There's calculations showing that if all road transport, were electrified, we would be talking about an increase in consumption of something like 15 to 20% in each country, which is something that in 20 plus years, it's manageable. And of course, another benefit is this, that these vehicles can be charged in a way which is flexible. I mean, you have a whole night. If there is a moment where there's not enough electricity, the charging can be reduced and then brought forward to later in the night when there's no more an issue. And let's say efficiency also means that we must be careful about not wasting this resource. And there, for instance, hydrogen and e-fuels have an issue, because to generate 1 kilometer energy for 1 kilometer, you need more or less 4 or 5 times the same energy, the same neutral energy that would need it. I just reviewed recently a study where there was an e-fuel scenario, and we were talking about not even the whole fleet, but a large part of the fleet, 4,400 terawatt hour of electricity needed in 2050, when the electrification scenario was 600. So this means that we would need to commit huge amounts of generation capacity to cover this difference, and basically to achieve the same kilometers run. So I think that the challenges need to be looked at really in a wide way. And the fact that this could be a solution is theoretically possible. But then we have to look at the cost. I mean, the cost of these fuels is foreseen to be cost, not price, in the 1 to 2 euro area in 2050. In 2030, it will probably even more than that. And I heard a few days ago automotive representatives saying that let's say the oil industry, the fuel industry, has not lived up to their let's say capacities, and this guy said it's too late. So I think that before pinning hopes on this solution, we need to see whether there's enough, because if let's say the large part of the car industry goes into zero emission, and I heard another one saying the investments are being done, and it's in that direction, then the capacity of producing and justifying the production will be reduced. At the same time, we have the charging infrastructure, as I mentioned. It's another issue. But for two-wheelers, I think that there is, for the lighter one, the easiest solution will be removable and charge at home. And battery swapping, of course, is another easy, let's say, solution. Whether and how much swappable batteries, maybe in multiple numbers, could be a solution also for larger vehicles and so on. This is an option. The other is to try and use the infrastructure made up for cars, basically, because I think that thinking about a parallel infrastructure might meet some problems. So I heard about work about a smaller plug and so on and so forth. I think that might be a risky direction. Another issue is battery cost, for sure. There is we have to do a lot there, but I think the progress has been spectacular. I remember the forecast in 2010, 2012, and they have been outstripped by reality. Now, on all this, DG Research, and if you can go to the next slide, has been working for a long time. I mean, we've been funding this kind of projects for a long time. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. And we had a series of partnerships, but let's say that this is the one that is really focused on zero-emission vehicles. And as you see, it's the whole gamut of vehicles that we are looking at, including two-wheelers. So it's let's say across the board. We are putting something like 600+ million in this partnership of funding. And in the past, we funded a lot of projects, for instance, on advanced 2-3-wheeler architecture and concepts, and also many on rider safety, not only on the vehicle, but also on accessories, on developing safety accessories. And we will continue to do so. But and at the same time, we have been also looking at light 3- and 4-wheelers, L6, L7. All this is still valid. We had topics on this, and we will have one. I cannot, let's say, put the text here because it's still in the last days of the decision, but we'll have a topic on frugal mobility. So vehicles which are adaptable for advanced countries and emerging countries with basically a basic platform, and then with different equipment and so on to satisfy different needs. And there, for instance, swappable batteries are explicitly mentioned as a potential solution. So I think that there's plenty of work possible and funding possible in these domains. And another area which I think is very interesting is light logistics. I think it's probably less sexy than motorbikes and so on, but I think urban freight applications with zero-emission vehicles is another area where the experience of the two-wheeler world might be brought to bear, because if many kilometers these delivery vans run, and how many start-stops and so on, I think that could be another area where we are welcoming proposals. As I said, the city's mission might be the sandbox where to test this concept. And we have there a joint topic between the mission and the partnerships to really think about a kind of a city-level approach to personal or freight transport. So keep an eye on possible on future calls, because there will be possible funding for new ideas in this domain. So I hope this provided a sufficiently clear landscape of the work we are doing and how and what is behind it. And I'm available for any question. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maurizio. I knew that you would be, how can I say, challenging, because clearly the policy is challenging. But you highlighted points which I must say, luckily, are under indeed the ACEM Vision 2030. They are taken into account. So you mentioned noise, local pollutants. They remain key elements of our vision. It is clear that when you bring them all together, and I understand where you're going. Clearly, especially in the urban environment, we're also aware of the cities. If it's not happening top-down at European level, it's happening bottom-up. It's in the press, and as you rightly say, there are increasing limitations on motorized transport that are going to come from the city level. So this is also part of the reason why we are engaging in this debate. Even though there is no European legislation, we are trying to work ahead of schedule to make sure we can provide what would be our needs and preferences. If I try now to open the floor, and I don't know if we can see all the participants in the round table in one slide, hopefully not this one, but the cameras. Yeah, at least we see some. That's good, thank you. I'd like to open the floor really for questions from within the panel itself, clearly as a preference, because you've been exchanging, I think, addressing the same challenges. You identified the same challenges. We identified also the diversity in our vehicle fleet, the fact that they can respond to different kinds of usages today, and in perspective there will be also opportunities. So who wants to start, I would say, with a question perhaps to either Maurizio? I'm thinking about the industry speakers, if there is any particular angle that you would like to deepen on with Maurizio, or the other way around. Indeed, Maurizio, you're also free to raise a question if you want. Yeah. And whilst you think about the question, I will also invite the audience, and I see somebody in the audience raising his hand, so I will invite Pierre-François Tissot, I believe. I can't see. Yes, it is. So I'm guessing question on safety, probably. Yeah.
No, not even.
Not even. Okay.
Hello, guys.
All right.
Pierre-François Tissot, co-founder of InMotion Airbags. But my question is more about when we look on mobility. Today, we see, like, for me, the boundaries between scooters, e-scooters, bicycles, e-bikes, scooters, and all of stuff is more or less together. Is how to move on a short distance with something that makes work not fast enough. So how do you see, as like former Perlot two-wheelers, your position between, okay, strong motorcycles on road, but when it comes to mobility, where is the boundaries, and how do you see your companies having a role in this part of electricals or even muscle-powered bikes?
Okay, that's a good question. Who would like to take it? You would like to, Helfried? Okay.
I can start maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, what I've shown is that I think we fully support the electrification in the urban areas. The speed is not that high, and I think it will make sense from our point of view. We've heard about the local pollutions which can be avoided by electrification. I mean, there is not a sharp statement where is the electrification ending up in a logical way, which is economically also okay for us as a company. But I've pointed out 48 volt would allow, let's say, 15 to 20 kilowatts on performance. With that, you can run around 100 kilometers per hour, dependent on the profile you ride. It's up to 80 to 100 kilometers range. I think this is a good fit for the smaller ones. If you have a closer look to the leisure, for instance, from our house, the Super Adventure, we have here, just for example, 23-liter gasoline on board, 220 kilograms, dry weight, and 240 fully equipped with fuel loaded, and with a consumption of around 5.4 liters per 100 kilometers, you have a range of around 400 kilometers. If you do the equation and convert this into battery with the same range, you end up with 450 kilogram, and then it's not longer a motorcycle. So I think you needs to be diversified in the application of the technology, as said before. So no sharp transition from our point of view.
Okay.
Perhaps I will.
Eric, please go ahead.
No, just to complete the answer about the boundaries. I think there are no boundaries. If I take my company, I know the best. We have been starting to develop and sell e-bikes, so electric bicycle, in 1993. So already 30 years ago. And 25 years ago, when we tried to import them in Europe, nobody was ready. The customers, the politicians, the distribution network, they did not understand the benefit of this vehicle. So it takes time. And today we are considering the PTW, which means Power Two-Wheeler World and Market, without any limitation, including e-bikes, up to any performance bike. But again, the problem is about the technology. Today, we want to sell marketable product that the customers can offer. and I totally support the vision of KTM. Actually, the battery performance allow us to consider first urban vehicle, and mainly for two reasons. First is CO2 emission for sure, but also silent. We have also to fight and to control better what is the noise pollution. And the noise pollution is really affecting everybody in the city. So when we are promoting urban two-wheelers, we try to solve these two pollution, silent and CO2. If you want to consider big bikes, today the ratio of performance is not competitive at all in terms of price, in terms of weight, in terms of capacity. Usually I say everybody consider that Tesla is fantastic car, but Tesla is using 800 kilos of battery to transport 4 persons with some luggages. A big bike need to transport 2 persons with luggages, and we cannot embark 400 kilos of battery. We cannot even embark 200. We have to embark 40. So the performance of Tesla battery should be 10 times more efficient to be fully applicable to our product. This is what I have listened carefully all the explanation, and we understand that the politic would like to dream about this world, but there is also a reality, and our consumers want to travel. How do we manage? We have to accept that we will have a transition period where this kind of e-fuel technology or hydrogen can play a role, improving significantly the CO2, but also compensating the lack of performance of the battery.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, Maurizio, is that you? I can't see.
Yes,
but
I would
please.
pick up exactly where you just left.
Yeah.
You mentioned hydrogen, and that's already another thing. That's a zero-emission technology, for instance. And about batteries, I would look at what happened in the last few years. The first Renault Zoe had a battery that allowed 150 kilometers. 3 years later, in the same exact size, to the point that you can swap the battery and put the new one, you have 400. So I think looking at transition technologies, when there is a technology which is growing so fast that you might have a 200 kilometer or so capability soon, and then you have fast charging. I think that, as I said, I'm not expecting everything to be exactly of today, but a stop of 10-15 minutes every 2 or 3 hours, 2 hours, I think could be an acceptable compromise that, as I say, if the alternative is a 3 or 4 euro per liter fuel, maybe people might think that that is an acceptable compromise.
Thank you. I don't know if there are any reactions to that, but looking, maybe a brief one if anybody has. Otherwise, I would leave the floor to Sebastian Will for another question, please.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sebastian Will from the S.p.A Institute for Traffic Sciences. And thanks for the insights you provided. All of you touched upon this electrification topic for the urban areas, maybe in the beginning. But Mr. Desen also touched upon that training issue, which motivated my question, because I think that a major contributing factor to sustainability is actually sitting on the power two-wheeler when it comes to energy consumption, for instance. So my question would be whether you think that this change in powertrain technology, so from ICE to electric powertrains, requires more inclusion of the riders in terms of information campaign or training on regenerative braking and whatever, as compared to the changes that appeared in powertrain technology in the past. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And this is a question to...
Generally, I guess everybody could answer it.
Yeah.
Originally, it was motivated by Mr. Desen's comment on the training.
Yeah. Who wants to reply? Eric, you want to integrate?
I can answer briefly. I think that obviously when you change the transmission, because on an electric vehicle you shift to automatic transmission, and as you know, the majority of the motorcycle and we sell are remaining with mechanical gearbox. So obviously you have to learn how to exploit the capacity of the engine. Mauricio was mentioning the Zoe. I could drive a Zoe, and it showed that immediately you understand that you have to adapt your way of driving to exploit all the capacity of this technology. So it will be the same for motorcycle. In general, the users we have are very much connected with their bike. They try to feel the bike, and it's part also of the safety. You have to control your bike. So in general, our users are very sensitive, but for sure it will be interesting. And we have been supporting the launch of the first riding school in Paris, using electric scooters, electric vehicle. Unfortunately, they are not so much Yamaha, but at least the initiative was correct. And I have no doubt that we will adapt the offer of education, training, and improvement to the new category of vehicle. So your question is valid, but I think it will not be a big issue. We will follow immediately.
Okay. Any follow-up replies? Otherwise, I see Matthias Möbe from Bosch, if I'm not wrong. There's a lot of light here, so okay.
Hey, good afternoon.
Yeah.
We've heard in the last 1.5 days, and also in the speech of Mr. Seynes, the potential of connectivity. My question goes to Ms. Maggiore. Is there any means, idea existing in the European Commission by when we will actually see a regulation which also includes the power two-wheelers in the connected world of traffic? A date.
Maurizio.
Yes, I think I see the point. The issue is that the specific needs are slightly different. I think that the technology will allow all transport means to benefit. When I think about the work, for instance, on looking around the corner with connectivity, I think in principle anybody could use it, including and probably even more benefit would be power two-wheelers, because as been said, they are the ones that people don't see. So a technology that signals that on a crossing road something is coming, and even if you don't see it, of course would benefit. Now, the issue was mentioned about the shoebox on the motorbike. Of course, all this means a space on the motorbike. So I don't think there is a specific need for motorbikes in terms of the implement of the technology, but then how to put it on the motorbike and in an economical way, that might be more of an issue. Of course, if there is, I always use small mopeds and things like that, so I'm not a motorbike using big motorbikes. But if there is something which is specific, which wouldn't be captured by all the work which has been done on safety and connection in the current fora, that might be falling between the cracks. But I think that the large majority would benefit. It's an issue of implementing it on the vehicles.
Okay.
May I give one comment here? I mean, safety is one of the driving factors for connectivity, but there is an additional aspect talking about electrified motorbikes. We're addressing with that young riders, and the young riders, they have the mobiles, and everything which is electric has an association to connectivity. I think it can also be a chance of bringing in this connectivity also in the heads of the young riders, and we strongly are going into this direction. And on the other hand, it enables, by getting neutralized data from our fleet, also the ability to develop our bikes in the future even better than we do today, because you have different load profiles, you have different areas where you go, and with this valuable information, I would say data is the new gold. We can tailor-made our products to the individual user groups in the sake for safety and also pleasure and leisure activities.
Okay, thank you. I see Michele Colaninno is on. I support. You need to make a contribution here, or is it?
Can you hear me, Antonio?
Yes.
I'm listening to these interesting questions the session, but I want to remind everybody that I see, and I think that it's obvious, a risk on all the discussion that we are having in this session. I repeat, I don't see any technology problem in our business and in the mobility field. Technology is there. We can create anything. Ideas are coming. Money are there. There's a liquidity market on the world. So it's not a question of technology. We can reach every target that we want. We don't have to underestimate the social impact. The social impact of the debates that we are taking today, that has two major aspects that must be on the table of everybody, politicians, entrepreneurs, and customers. And when I say politicians, I mean, every level of politics. I agree with Mr. Maggiore. It's not EU Commission that is driving the situation. It's state-owned. It's a local authority debate. But when we speak about electric mobility, the cost of a vehicle and the cost of mobility will increase a lot in the next 20 years. And it's not a problem. We are only to be aware that mobility will not have the same cost of today per kilometer. The second issue is on jobs. Building an electric mobility needs 1/10 of items compared to a thermic engine. And obviously, that's normal. And we are seeing it's happening in Germany, for instance, in the biggest worldwide automotive industry world. You need 1/10 of people working on the line. So I'm not afraid of technology. I'm very happy that my children will live in a zero polluting world. By the way, it's not just the automotive world that is responsible for pollution. Anyway, we are debating about automotive and mobility today. And I hope that every sector will have the same attention that we are having today. Because the world is not just mobility, automotive, trucks, or two-wheel. So we don't have to underestimate these when speaking about zero pollution. I repeat, it's not a technology issue. It's our target, and it's our social responsibility as entrepreneurs to reach the zero polluting world. But the cost will increase, jobs will be lower, and this is a transition. And like every transition will be solved, but it's not a tomorrow solution. It will take 20 years, I think, and it's our internal debates. We are building robots in US for delivery, for instance. We are building everything. We have every technology that you can use in mobility. But the cost is so prohibitive that customers are not buying. They are not enjoying recharge infrastructure in downtown. You need, 100,000 infrastructure columns to fulfill the needs of Milan, for instance, because you take 5 hours each car or 5 hours each vehicle. So it's a very complicated world where we are facing. I repeat, it's not a question of technology. We can do everything. But I firmly ask, and in my debates in Brussels, I continue saying, please look at other aspects. It's not just mobility, zero emission. This is the easiest part. It's easy to put technology in a vehicle. The social impact, the time needed for such a big revolution, and I repeat, every revolution carry on huge opportunities. So there's an opportunity every day. But it's not easy to say that from 200 kilo for a vehicle today going up to 450 kilos, impossible. Okay, the bikes are dead. Cost per kilometer now, we know that electricity cost is creating a lot of problems to people. And it's not just mobility, it's the normal life. And obviously, states are making money on selling gasoline, every state, and they will revert to electricity. So it's a solution, as I said before, Antonio and everybody, that we have to analyze deeply and take very, very attention to all the points. It's not technology. Technology is easy. I don't know what Mr. Majoris think about the social impact that the revolution carry on. Like it's normality. It's nothing strange. I'm not afraid.
I know that there are sectorial, and I'm not pretending. I think the Commission is not pretending that there's no sectorial implication. The impact assessment which has been done, which is public, says that yes, there will be reduction in some sectors and there will be increase in other sectors. When you say that you need 100,000 charging points in a city, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of jobs. And if you consider that behind that you will have to multiply the generation capability, windmills, solar panels, installations, or whatever, that's another lot of jobs. Of course, in a supplier or in a manufacturer, that could be a reduction. But at the same time, I was amazed when I went to China. In a few years, all power two-wheelers became electric, and we're talking about a big country. I'm sure that's created a lot of jobs. Because when you replace a technology, and as you said, it's not tomorrow, so we can spread this over time, and therefore prepare all the needed components. At the same time, I see sometimes some curious statements, because when we talk about cost, yes, electricity at the moment, and I hope it's not long, but of course we are working in a war environment, so I cannot make a forecast, but sooner or later we should be going back to a more normal environment. Electricity in principle is at the base of e-fuels. So whatever is the price of electricity, e-fuels will cost several times. So I think that we have to be careful about designing a future where the steps, that we have all the steps more or less clear. Of course, the farther they are, the more fuzzy they might be. But I think that the whole chain has to be looked at. And as I say, for some chains, we know where we are now. We know that we had a huge increase in performance. And for me, it's fair to expect similar improvements in the future. And at the same time, this war has taught us that we don't want to, let's say, depend too much on someone. So there's a lot of work, for instance, on finding national, local, let's say, European or not European, but in safe places, let's say, places that we can rely on for having all the material. But for instance, the electricity, we can produce almost all locally or in the neighborhood, so to say, considering sea generation, windmill generation in Norway and things like that. And that would be, I would say, a safer world if we achieve that, rather than depending for oil from someone, from gas from someone else, and in many cases, not very reliable suppliers as we have seen. So I think that we could have plus and minuses. Nobody is forgetting this. But I think that overall they might compensate, and we have the time. Sometimes I hear, let's say, too much focus on today and not enough long-term view on the landscapes for energy, for transport, and so on and so forth. Of course, as I say, there will be, and I stress in the Green Deal that there is a social dimension already. Helping lower income segments of the population to cope with this with some support. For instance, coming from the increased taxation of the polluting fuels or energy. It's a matter of balance, and the balance is made possible also by the time horizon. We are not doing it overnight.
Helfried, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Get one comment.
And then I have a question here. Okay. A lady has been waiting for a long time, so sitting down. Okay, please.
Maurizio, following up your statements here, I think I want to bring in that there is currently not enough energy available by our own in Europe. This is the case for Germany, and this is even the case for Austria, where I come from, a small country with a lot of energy coming from the water and other neutral devices, I have to say, but it's absolutely clear the power supply by electricity now and in the future cannot be covered by ourselves. There's no way. You can put PVs everywhere and increase the supply by wind and solar, but this won't be sufficient. So, and this is the reason why we strongly believe that maybe being independent, going into different countries and install their solar factories on a big scale and produce out of that H2, convert it into synthetic fuels, is a much better way. Because maybe you know what is the efficiency of the biology in the world is the photosynthesis. Okay, the efficiency of the photosynthesis is 0.2%. But it's a matter of fact that the sun is available all the time, and therefore the efficiency is not decisive. So if you go into countries where there is a lot of sun, the efficiency chain is not decisive. It is decisive when it is limited. For instance, here in Germany and in Europe. So, I've always thought that the task of the politics is to set a framework for this sustainable mobility and not define the technologies. How they achieve this fit for that I see it in a different way. Sorry, I've carefully written the Fit for 55 paper, and you're telling H2 is CO2 neutral, and the derivatives out of a neutral ingredient is suddenly not CO2 neutral. This is not very logical. So, I mean, isn't it the task of the politics to ensure the basic supply of the energy sources and the associated infrastructure, as Michele has pointed out? This was my question.
Maurizio, a brief answer, because I know we're running over time and there's somebody waiting for a question.
I try to highlight a couple of points only. It's a very complex discussion. As I told you, I had a study that I reviewed recently, making a scenario with the not even full e-fuel use, with very optimistic, let's say, assumptions on consumption by combustion engines in 2050. I think a bit too optimistic. And they arrived to a level of 4,400 terawatt hours. Now, I did... and you say, well, who cares? It's if it's inefficient. Well, the point is that I did a quick back of the envelope calculation, and I would welcome any expert, I'm not an expert in these things, to do it again just to check my data. My results were that to have the difference between 4,400 terawatt hours and 600 or less, which is the equivalent number of kilometers for electric, you needed to use all the production of windmills for the next 20 years. This is basically to supply, to cover this inefficiency. Now, this means that there wouldn't be windmills left to decarbonize anything else. Or you need to, and by the way, there is all this concern about raw materials. Well, and windmill has tons of rare earths in the magnets which are needed for it, because you need it to be as light as possible because it's at the top of a pole of 100, 150 meters. Now, this is, let's say, to me, is not realistic. I mean, they cost so much, because the other point is this is cost. The best forecast are for 1.52 euro per liter cost. No profit, no transport, no taxes. So, it has to be sustainable from both points of view. And at the same time, if we have 600 terawatt hours to be generated in Europe, you mentioned national point of view. I think that's the wrong scale. Because if you are in a country that, I know the situation in Germany where the wind is where the industry is not. So I think that a solution there will be better connection, including between sunny countries, windy countries, and other countries. I think that and of course into that there might be a part of hydrogen. The point is that hydrogen will be needed for steel, will be needed for chemicals, will be needed in other areas where there's no electrification potential, and therefore there will be competition also for this resource. So I just made an example of something where in theory all is possible, but the question is then what the side effects are also in that case. So wherever there is an electricity capability, generation capability, which is maybe not in Austria, but it might be in Greece, and you just have to connect better, because there are already connections, but more capability for power between Greece or northern Norway, where there's plenty of wind, and all these things. Of course, it's not today, but we don't need it today.
Thank you, Maurizio. I'm conscious of time, and I'm looking at IFZ organizers because I think we're running late. I'd like to take at least one last question because you have been waiting a long time, and then I'll draw to a close, please.
Yeah, I just want to challenge a bit with a wider perspective. I'm Marilyn Nugent from the University of Florence. I've been working the last few years on PTW safety and more recently on VRU safety in general. And I've been involved in the last year and a half with engaging with stakeholder groups, particularly vulnerable road user advocacy groups. I just want to mention that I read a study years ago that cycling was the most fuel-efficient form of transportation on the entire planet, even looking at animal species locomotion and their energy demands. I know that in business, to be a sustainable business, the focus must be on the customer, not on the product. I know that there's sustainable development goals that address the issue in developed countries of epidemic obesity and lifestyle health disorders, which presents a huge cost to national governments. I know that cities are more and more moving towards not just a mandate to reduce noise pollution and emissions pollution, but to reclaim roads that were co-opted by the automotive industry starting back in the 1900s. And so now there's a large movement on to redress this disenfranchisement of people from safe use of streets. And there's many, many initiatives going on. You can just Google about greening cities and removing traffic hazards. so that people can be encouraged to walk and cycle and play safely. So I'm very concerned that there's a gap between industry and what the current customer is evolving into. Also, I understand that fewer and fewer young people are looking for driver's licenses. So I would suggest that maybe there's an opportunity to refocus initiatives and not talk about ways to address increasing fuel consumption needs, but to address the issue that if we reduce consumption, it makes a healthier planet, it makes healthier individuals, it makes happier people in more community-centered cities. And I'm just a bit concerned that industry is not taking a critical view of what is going on and what humans are asking for now.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, one little thing, the issues of equitable mobility and gender-balanced mobility options is also important.
Yeah.
A lot of the initiatives that and the developments that go on in R&D for transport are focused on the needs of men to get to work. And there's a big gender gap because many women have different mobility needs at different times of the day. They have to do multiple errands and caregiving services, and this has been highlighted recently as being not addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you. It's almost leading me to, if I could respond and actually draw to a conclusion. But before I do, I'd like to ask if there are any last thoughts, inputs that you would like to bring to all of you on the panel before I do that. Again, I know we're late, so looks like it's not the case. Then I will draw to a conclusion. I appreciate a lot your last point because I believe this is what the evolution of the transport system is aiming at. So becoming more inclusive, making all vulnerable road users part of the system, and rather than, I would say, side effects or victims is not the right word, but I mean people that are not thought about in the design of the solution. So I think that's a good point, and I know that Europe is definitely taking that angle. So that is clear. We want to be, as motorcycle industry, and I believe as a sector, we want to be part of that future, and this is undisputable. I just take a few words that were said, and I like to use these. I think there are 5 words here on my list to try and conclude. We talked about diversity of solutions, diversity of vehicles. We know we have a lot to bring. We have different vehicles that can answer different needs. This is a real plus of this sector. We talked about bicycles even. We are, contrary to the car, a very much more specialized, lighter, smaller vehicle, which has a lot to bring today and in perspective. It's an issue of seeing, of course, opportunities rather than challenges. I think Maurizio was also clear, and we're also clear in our vision, that whilst we develop the vision today, it is a vision about the future. And this is important because as soon as we know that we are striving in a certain direction, we have time to make the change. It is not about making it overnight. Another point that was made was on the SDGs. This is also very important, the Sustainable Development Goals. These are at the, I would say, at the heart of UN, I would say, resolutions, and in general, also now becoming a key part of the EU development. Any new legislation is based on the SDGs, and so is the vision by the industry. We have looked at the SDGs, we took them as a starting point for the development of our vision, so I think here again we are converging rather than diverging, and this is also good. We identified many challenges that we are aware of. Some of those are going back in time. They've been addressed largely, as Eric was saying, safety. Huge improvements have been achieved, and we are still working. And if you look at the environment, it is the same thing. We achieved huge improvements, and we are still working in that direction. When we look at opportunities, because this is the thing that I believe as a moderator, but also as an ACEM Secretary General, which is important, we have to think about the opportunities that are there. So challenges have been identified. It's going to be difficult, it will take time, we will have support for research, we will have the understanding, I hope also from the institutions, that a large part of our products moving to electric, the urban ones, are actually going to probably make the most of the effort that we can make in the direction of electrification. That's going to be a huge part of our business, moving to electric at an horizon which is not that distant. Probably allowing many more citizens to access electromobility at a cheaper cost that they would otherwise if they were to think about buying a car. So again, here, opportunities for us, but also for policymakers to try and encourage 2-, 3-, 4-wheeled small vehicles, which can be used also for not only moving people around, but also for moving small goods. This is the other point I think Maurizio was mentioning, the opportunities that are lying with small logistics. There's a lot of potential for this sector to really bring an answer which is not existing today in this field. And that will be of major interest to the cities, which, as we saw, are also influencing this debate. The Commission is, I would say, with a certain level of responsibilities, they can act on a certain level, but for the rest, it is the cities. So again, here, from my side, in closing this event and thanking all the speakers that have intervened, Maurizio, thank you for joining and making your time available. Thank you for colleagues from the industry that have taken the time to bring your perspective, your company's views that are perfectly consistent with the vision, and I believe personally perfectly consistent also with what the institutions are looking for. We simply need to give it time, recognize that we have a different size in terms of a sector compared to the car industry, so that also needs to be factored in. And on that, I'd like to thank all of you here in the audience and online. I couldn't take any questions from the online audience, I'm sorry for that. Thank the organizers, the translators, for taking the extra time to be with us and doing this job. I found it very interesting. Thank you very much. Wish you all a nice end of the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
To those who ride them, powered two-wheelers, or motorcycles and mopeds, are loved for obvious reasons. Value for money, time saving,